All right, welcome. So, have you ever been on one of those tech projects? You know the kind. It just feels like it's spiraling into total chaos. The demands are always shifting, the meetings never end, and that beautiful plan you made? Yeah, it was useless the second you wrote it. If that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Today we're going to dig into exactly why that happens, and we're going to pull back the curtain on a really simple shift in thinking that connects the dots between Agile, DevOps, and some seriously elite performance.
Now, this simple sentence, this was a huge breakthrough moment. It came up during a massive cloud transformation program at BP that was, well, massively stuck. I mean, the leadership team was in a total logjam. They were trying to force this rigid, long-term plan onto a situation that was anything but. It was ambiguous, it was constantly changing. And this one quote, it just unlocked a completely new way of thinking for them. So, what in the world did it mean?
Okay, to really get that quote, we have to start with a fundamental idea. Not all problems are created equal. And in this first part, we're going to see why mixing them up, why misdiagnosing the kind of problem you have, is probably the single biggest reason tech projects go off the rails. So here's the absolute core of it. The team at BP, they were treating their project like it was just a complicated puzzle. You know, something you could solve if you just got enough smart people in a room and made a really detailed blueprint. But that wasn't the reality. In reality, they were trying to navigate a complex system, a place where cause and effect are totally murky, and the path forward has to be discovered step by step. You can't plan it out in advance. It's like they were using a street map of New York to navigate the Amazon rainforest. Just the wrong map for the territory. So if that old map is totally wrong, then what's the right one? How do you figure out where you are? Well, that brings us right to our second section. We're going to look at something called the Science-Venn framework. It's a really powerful tool that helps you figure out what kind of reality you're actually dealing with. And here it is, the Science-Venn framework. It was created by a researcher named Dave Snowden. And by the way, it's pronounced Cynefin. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Oh great, another 4-quadrant business matrix. But this is different, I promise. Think of it less like a rigid box and more like a guide for making sense of the world. It's about diagnosing your situation first so you can act in the right way, instead of just defaulting to what you're comfortable with. Okay, and this is where the framework gets super easy to understand. Just think about it like this. Following a recipe to build a bike? That's simple. The steps are known, the outcome is predictable, best practices work here. Now, building a car, that's complicated. You need experts, you need analysis, but it is a solvable problem with a blueprint. But what about driving that car in rush hour traffic? Now that's complex. You can't predict what every other driver will do. You have to constantly probe, sense what's happening, and respond. And then, a major pileup on the freeway? Boom, that's chaotic. You don't sit there and analyze root cause. You act. You act first, just to stabilize everything. So let's bring this right into our world. How about a little game of domain jeopardy? Okay, first up, a scheduled server upgrade. What is? Simple, right? It's a repeatable process, you follow a checklist. Next, debugging a gnarly pipeline issue. That's going to be complicated. It takes an expert, but there is a right answer. All right, how about a major platform outage? Lights are blinking red everywhere. That's pure chaos. You act now, you analyze later. But here's the big one, designing a brand new system architecture from scratch. Where does that land? Yep, squarely in the complex domain.
And here's the real kicker. Most of what we do in modern software development, just like this intricate digital workflow for a dental implant, is inherently complex. I mean, think about it. You've got tons of interconnected parts, user needs that are constantly changing, and technologies that evolve every 6 months. There's just no way to predict the final outcome from the start. And this is why those old school linear planning methods, like the waterfall model, they're almost guaranteed to fail here because they make that critical mistake. They treat a complex, unpredictable problem as if it were just a complicated, solvable puzzle.
Okay, so if we accept that most of our work is actually complex, what do we do? How are we supposed to operate? Well, this right here is the big aha moment of this whole thing. This is where Agile and DevOps stop being just buzzwords you put on your resume and start being like essential survival tools. It's because the entire mindset behind both Agile and DevOps is, at its very core, a strategic response to complexity. They are literally the probe, sense, respond loop put into practice. The whole idea is to accept that we don't have all the answers up front. These methodologies are built for learning and adapting on the fly. And to see just how deep this connection really goes, let's look at the 3 foundational principles of DevOps. They're often called the 3 ways.
These ways are all about flow, feedback, and experimentation. They're basically the backbone of the whole DevOps philosophy. And what's so incredible is when you see how perfectly the core principles of Agile just snap right into place with them.
So let's take the first Agile principle. Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. That sounds great, right? Well, it's a perfect match for the first way of DevOps, which is all about flow. All those practices we talk about like CI/CD, they're not just technical jargon. They're the engines that actually make that smooth, continuous flow of value to the customer possible.
Okay, next up, another core Agile principle. Working software is the primary measure of progress. This one directly fuels the second way of DevOps, amplify feedback loops. And why is that? Because shipping actual working software, even tiny little pieces of it, is the absolute fastest way to get real, honest feedback from your users. It's how you cut down on risk and make sure you're actually building the right thing.
And finally, this Agile principle. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. This is the very soul of the third way of DevOps, continual experimentation and learning. It's all about creating a culture where it's safe to try things, where teams are actually empowered to probe, to sense, and to respond. It's about learning from failure and always getting better. I mean, the DNA here is just identical. It's the same idea.
All right, so the theory sounds pretty neat, right? It all fits together so nicely. But the big question is, does it actually work in the real world? Does this way of thinking actually deliver results? Well, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. Let's look at the numbers.
First things first, the industry absolutely gets this. A recent State of Agile survey found that a massive 90% of organizations say that a DevOps transformation is important to them. So yeah, this is not some niche, fringe idea anymore. It's totally mainstream.
But okay, here's where it gets really mind-blowing. The Accelerate State of DevOps report, which is like the gold standard study on this, found that the top-performing companies deploy code 208 times more frequently than the low performers. Let that sink in. Not 20% more, 208 times. That's not just an improvement, it's a completely different universe.
And it's not just about frequency. They're getting ideas out the door at lightning speed. We're talking a 106 times faster lead time. That's from the moment a developer commits their code to it being live in the hands of customers.
Now, you might think all that speed means things are breaking all the time, right? Wrong. It actually creates more stability. These elite teams recover from incidents 2,604 times faster. 2,600. So when something does go wrong, and things always go wrong, they're just built to bounce back almost instantly.
And here's the final nail in the coffin for the move fast and break things myth. All that speed, all those deployments, it doesn't lead to more chaos. In fact, it's the opposite. These high-performing teams have a 7 times lower change failure rate. Think about that. They move faster and they break things less. That's the holy grail, right there.
So after all that, what does this really mean for you and me? It means we've got to shift how we think. We need to let go of the comfort of those big, detailed, long-term plans and really learn how to lead in a world that is, by its nature, uncertain.
And this really is the fundamental question for any of us leading a team or a project in today's world. If the future is fundamentally unknowable, if you simply can't create that perfect 5-year plan, then what do? I get it, we all crave certainty, it's a human thing. But in a complex world, that desire for certainty is a trap. And the answer, fittingly, comes from Dave Snowden himself, the creator of the framework. He says you don't try to predict the final destination. You can't. Instead, you focus on what he calls the adjacent possible. Basically, you just ask, from right where we are now, what are the possible next steps we can take? You run small experiments, things that are safe to fail, just to see what works and what doesn't. You just try to do the next right thing. And in a world that's always changing, that's not just a nice strategy. It's really the only way to truly navigate the chaos and actually find your way forward.